Every year, except last year, Google I/O gives us a ton to get excited about, and so I've wrapped up what happened at Google I/O's Keynote event here in just a few minutes. The show kicked off in what seemed initially like a strange way, but it was really a precursor to a lot of discussions around AI and machine learning that became very impressive. And what was happening was a band was playing and the orchestra of blobs were actually behind there, and there was definitely interaction going, so it was a machine learning experiment. Maybe some of the biggest news to me was actually around wearables. Now, what has happened here again is that we're seeing the combination of Google and Samsung. We're seeing those companies get closer and closer together in terms of partnerships, and what they've actually done here is combined two operating systems. So this is Tizen and Wear OS coming together from those two companies to get the best out of those worlds. And it doesn't stop there. Not only are we getting that combination, but Fitbit has been brought into the mix to give the fitness and the health aspects, which are some of the best out there. Now, what they're doing with this combination is they're creating an operating system that other developers and other device makers will be able to use, but that next Galaxy Active Watch coming out from Samsung, it was confirmed during the show that it will include this new operating system. With everyone having access to this, a number of new tiles can be created. And you can kind of think about this like widgets, but something that you can quickly flip through to see the different tiles from the apps on your smartwatch. There were also some navigation shortcuts that were talked about, and all of this is in combination with some huge improvements that we're going to see from Android and really Android 12. I'm not usually that big on how things look or having them have to look perfect, but I will say that the new Material U design that was introduced as being part of Android 12, I think it's a really stunning and individual way to kind of personalize everything in our life. So it's not just for Android 12 devices, and it will extend to other things. Now, what I'm actually talking about here is the ability to kind of take a palette of colors and apply it to everything on your Android device. Now, it goes beyond that in terms of you being able to set a new picture as your wallpaper and then having the palette actually adjust. That would go across to your Wear OS devices, and there was discussion about Google Assistant enabled smart displays and other smart home devices. So we should see this be not only personal to you because it's set at your account level, your Google account level, but also showing up on different devices. And I can't wait for the day when I look at my Nest Hub Max and it shifts to the color I want. The Material U design and those colors actually showed up inside of a new quick setting screen that'll be a part of Android 12. I liked a lot of what I saw here just from a design standpoint, but also from those smart home and control elements that you and I are looking for. We saw the home controls, which is on our Pixel devices here. You can go ahead and get to those, but now you can get to it within the quick settings. Plus, there were some privacy controls that we'll talk more about later. There was also just a general better feed there for your notifications and for messaging and things that were going on there. But a couple of things that weren't really talked about was actually how the Google Assistant on that phone would adjust as well. So number one, we saw new controls with a double tap of the power button would actually bring up your Google Assistant. But on top of that, it adjusted using this Material U theme and had a whole new interface. One of the hidden tips and tricks I showed you was actually the Android TV application and just what you could do with that application, but we haven't seen a replacement. And now Google is talking about some newer native features right in your Android smartphone that allow you to control devices like that as a remote. So this explains why we never saw an Android TV app replacement fully coming out. Now, getting into your car with your phone is maybe not the newest thing, but embedded within Android will be a new car key feature. And what was really interesting to me there, and something that I think reflects where we're headed a little bit, is that you could share your car key out to someone else with an Android phone. And this will be in partnership with a number of different car makers. Now, there was another partnership there in terms of Android Auto, but my favorite thing from all of that was that they talked about Android Auto wireless, and I am just happy to be free of cords. Now, I'm hoping my car can be updated for that. So we will see new Pixel phones come out in the fall, and that was all but confirmed. Although we didn't actually have a device launch of a new Pixel phone, sorry everyone that was hoping for that, it's going to happen in the fall in conjunction with Android 12. Now, within Android 12 and within this whole presentation was actually a lot of discussion around privacy and security. And some of the ways that Google was talking about this will change your perspective on how they're approaching this. So they're calling these fundamentals private by design and secure by default. And really what it translates into for you are some new features that you have access. And one of the best examples of that is that all of the Google accounts, and this has been going on for a while, but they are set to delete your data every 18 months. And you can set that more aggressively, you can pull that back, but they are set that way to be more private by design. Now, for me, I've been using the Google Password Manager for quite some time, and it's great for me to kind of go back and forth. Google talked about further integration between Chrome and between apps and just getting better and having import tools. But the big feature to me that they introduced was the ability not only to get that notification that a password had been compromised, but also that you could go directly from the password manager and modify that password. So they'll take you right into that place. Now, all of this is going on while Google hinted at the end of passwords as far as they're concerned. On your Android phones, you're also going to find a new privacy dashboard. And this is really important because it'll show you a timeline for which applications are accessing which parts of your data. And they're also showing you up in the top right of the operating system when an application or when one of those permissions are being used. And within that privacy dashboard, you have the ability to manage those permissions very quickly. So lots of changes there. Now, the other thing, I was talking about that quick settings or that quick access bar and that whole navigation pane. Well, when you pull that down, you had the ability to, no matter what you're doing, turn off the camera and turn off the mic in terms of permissions across the entire phone. So those are just quick buttons you can access. Now, one of the biggest things about privacy is that all your data is being sent to the cloud. And I have really enjoyed the fact that Google has continued to move things more and more locally, and this is especially true with some of these improvements. Now, they mentioned a number of features that are happening on what they call the private compute core. This includes features like now playing, smart reply, and a ton of different audio processing, all happening locally on your Android device. There were also a number of new controls that just showed up available for us to manage our privacy or our data. Now, up in the top right of Chrome browsers, you have that picture of yourself. Well, you can go and quickly delete your recent search data. You also have inside of Maps the ability to turn off location history very quickly and the ability to actually lock photos within Photos on your smartphone. Now, speaking of those other applications, we saw new components within Google Photos for generating memories and kind of analyzing the photos, again, on device to create these memories that you could modify and remove photos from and really get in deep on what you want to remember. So that was really interesting, but Maps was maybe the most interesting service in terms of the improvements. So some more choices in terms of the routes that we're taking, including eco-friendly routes and safer choices. And I really like that one. Instead of just going by distance or by speed, maybe we can choose a bit of a safer route. And Google was talking about trying to measure the impact of that. One of the biggest things if you're traveling is just how busy an area is. It's not necessarily just the place you're trying to go to, which you want to see the data for in maps, but I like the new area-based approach. I have enjoyed live view, and actually my kid really enjoys just dropping the little person and going wherever he wants, but live view to me hasn't been all that useful. However, Google has really worked on this feature, and it means that you can pull up information for the different places you are around and get better information, get all of that review information or how busy it is or all of those other things that you might want to look at. They even went so far as to create some live view indoor or inside of buildings, and they talked about airports and malls and helping with navigation within there. Now they're starting there with just a couple of cities, and they will expand out over time. Now with all of these inclusions and all of this new information going into maps, you might be thinking, okay, this is kind of information overload, and Google now has so much information there, and they're thinking about that. So they actually talked about taking a bit of an AI approach, not only to what you do on a regular basis, but also the time of day. So for example, you know what, if it's early in the morning, you might be looking for a coffee. So they're going to take that into account and show you those things. Of course, you're going to be able to go and search to get what it is you want. And speaking of that search, well, that's kind of a big component of what Google started out as and what they still are. Now, they have moved in some pretty specific ways in terms of search to, include different ways to search. So they talked about Lens and how you can use that to pull something out of your environment and go searching for that. And actually, they showed us a whole new ecosystem for shopping that is quite impressive. Give me a minute on that. But Lens became one of those ways that you could search. And what they're really talking about is all of their search capabilities and all of the ability to provide you information became kind of two things, or is becoming two things. Number one, it's all translatable information, and it will be presented to you in whatever language you would like. It doesn't mean that the original content was created in your language, but they will present it to you that way. And the other way is multimodal. Now, multimodal means that it could be written, it could be an image, it could be a video, it could be audio. There are all of these different ways that we want to try and get data, or we want to feed data into them to find out what we need, and then how we want it back out. And this included the shopping experience. The shopping experience became an incredible system here, and we'll have to see how this all comes together. They did touch on the fact that YouTube was going to become much more of a shopping experience, and boy, I really hope that YouTube is thinking about creators as they do this, because if they're not, it's going to be nasty. Now, the thing that they're talking about here is that they've signed up all these small businesses, all these small merchants. They of course have all these big merchants as well, but really they're able to aggregate all of this data, and they can pull it in different ways. So not only can you take a picture of something you like, but if you had a screenshot on your phone and they showed somebody's shoes in a basketball game, I can't remember who the player was, but you could actually pull those shoes out of the screenshot you took and then go searching for that. And you could of course aggregate and get different types of information, including YouTube videos and product reviews and other images about it. And there was just this whole system being built around shopping. Now, maybe my favorite research project, and this is not something going into search today, but it was called LaMDA. And this is what I would call one of those moments that you see from Google I/O that just lives with us for a lot of years. They showed LaMDA speaking to an individual from the perspective of being Pluto, or the perspective of being a paper airplane. And what was really interesting within this experience was not that it was just giving information, it was contextual information coming back. And the person could switch gears on the other side of the conversation, and LaMDA would respond in kind. Now, what was even more interesting was that LaMDA was keeping the conversation alive. These were open-ended responses that allowed the conversation to progress. Now, they were already talking about how this could improve the Google Assistant, but they were very clear that it's a research project. One of my favorite parts of Google I/O a few years ago was the shark that showed up on the stage, and that was a really cool implementation of AR technology with our phones. Now, I really like this from an educational standpoint, and I think about every time I've been trying to learn an athletic skill, and that is what you will now find available within Google Search, is the ability to bring a professional athlete into a space to show you how to do something. So this was really incredible to see, and I think about my kid being able to learn all these different skills. The other thing, as I talked about that translation and multimodal capability, well, the application within education here, I think, is really powerful. And I just want to point this out. They actually had a couple of examples of people who were learning in whatever language they wanted to learn in, but a lot of the information that they would need is in a different language. And so they could use Lens to scan the information, or they could just type in their request, and what was coming back was resources in their language or translated in their language. So I just want to tell you about a couple of research projects that were talked about here. It kind of goes alongside that LaMDA project, but the video conferencing capabilities, they showed all these new Google Meet features that you're going to get and collaboration features. Those are real things, but they showed this conferencing thing that was actually a 3D modeling system that basically replicated you as a 3D model on the other side, and they had specialized displays and specialized cameras, and they're using it internally at Google, and it was really reconstructing a person to look so lifelike. So that was absolutely incredible. The other thing that I think was incredible and maybe a little less flashy was the application of AI within the medical field. And this is such an important thing, and they're actually going to roll out a tool that will help you to look at the different skin abnormalities, I'll call them, I'm not a doctor, on the web, and they're going to launch that this year. So you can take a couple of pictures from your phone and use it as a search tool, and then they will give you some resources and some idea of what they think is going on. Now, sadly, there were no product launches at Google I/O this year, and I know that that is going to frustrate a lot of people. I got instant responses on social media about how that was upsetting and not what people were looking for, and I get it. I mean, listen, I wish I was sitting here telling you that we had had 60 product launches and this was going to be the most amazing year ever in terms of new products from Google, but that's not what we got, and my video is not going to go as far as a result of that. But I want to offer you what it is I see from this Google I/O, and I think it's a setup, and I don't mean that in the negative connotation sort of way, like, they're setting us up for failure. No, I don't think that's it. And I know we've had a lot of research and a lot of cool presentations from Google that, promise us incredible things, and then we have to wait years to get them. I don't think that's what this was. Google has definitely matured, and they were very clear when it was a research project versus something that was going to come out. And I do think that this is a precursor to all of the devices that we will see come out from Google. Don't forget that their CEO actually said this will be one of the biggest years for hardware for Google. So yes, this is a developers conference and they kind of returned a little bit to those roots today, but this was a precursor to the Pixel 5a, the Pixel 6 coming out in the fall alongside Android 12. This was a precursor to Google branded Wear OS devices and another level of partnership with Samsung. So those things are all coming together for the fall this year. And this is all a precursor in a couple of ways for new Google Assistant features to come out, new features like the Material You design showing up on our smart displays, but it is a precursor to new Nest products. They're just not quite ready to talk about it because the Matter standard is not fully developed yet. It's a precursor to Android becoming central to a helpful home. And really, if you remember just a little while ago, Google said, we're going to help you create the helpful home. That's what Google Home and Google Nest are about. And what they said throughout the day here within all of their different services was that they were becoming more helpful and they're driving to that helpful home place. So really powerful stuff. And while we don't have the devices, I think if you look here, you have a lot of very immediate, not necessarily all immediate, benefits to your life and helpful in a lot of ways. So while you might be kind of disappointed here that there are no new gadgets, I can fill that need for you. There's actually a video up on screen that shows you the best new smart home tech and just the best tech around in general here in 2021. So you can go there and get your fill of the best new devices. Otherwise, thanks for watching today, and of course, don't hate, automate.